Hi, my name is Robin Swanick, and I'm with AARP Nebraska. During the month of September, we have done a 5-part series showcasing the Hastings Museum. Now, this is something that you're able to view live on Facebook every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Today is our last series for the Hastings Museum, and this segment is going to be on Kool-Aid. So it's the final part. It's going to showcase the inventor and his development of the product that we know as Kool-Aid. Teresa Kreutzer Hodson is the curator of the collections at the Hastings Museum, and she's going to talk to us today about Kool-Aid.
Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
It's always so good to see you. We have learned so much in the last 5 weeks, and I know that there is so much to learn, but I think it's very fitting that we end this series talking about Kool-Aid. So I'm going to go ahead and let you start, Teresa, and tell us what you know.
Okay, thank you. So here at the Hastings Museum, we of course do a lot of things Kool-Aid, and we have developed an exhibit that talks about Kool-Aid and the inventor of that product, Edwin Perkins. And today I'd just like to share a little bit more about who Edwin was and how Kool-Aid came to be. I'm not going to talk about more of its more recent history. I'm going to tell you that you can come to the museum, or I'll share with you another way that you can learn more about that history at the end of this presentation. So let's get started. First slide, please. So Edwin Perkins was born in January of 1889 in Lewis, Iowa. He wasn't actually born here in Nebraska, but when he was 4 years old, his family moved to Furnace County, Nebraska, which is around Beaver City, Oxford, in that area. The family moved into a sod house and tried their hand at farming. His dad had come from Lewis, Iowa as a store owner. He had a general store there. And after a few years of farming, they decided that maybe going back to the store would be better. But family was very important, and it's one of the reasons that David and his wife Kizzy moved to Nebraska. So David and Kizzy are sitting on the the right side of the picture, and Kizzy's parents, Sophia and Elijah Haymaker, are sitting on the right side. Edwin is standing in between his grandmother and his father. He was the second in the family. And like I said, family was very important. The Haymakers had already moved to Nebraska, and David and Kizzy followed them here to be closer to them. Next slide, please. But like I said, after a few years, they decided farming maybe wasn't the way to go, and David bought a store in Henley, and the family moved into town. This is an image of that store, and Edwin can be seen leaning up against the post, the second from the right. Like any other kid at that time, he had to help his family with whatever business they had, and so he was part of the workforce for the general merchandise. He would sell people different things and stock the store and different things like that. He did go to school. He participated in football. He's sitting in the center in that football picture there. You can see him with all of his teammates. He went to school until the 8th grade, in which he graduated there in Henley. After graduating, next slide, please, he decided that he really wanted to create his own business. So he tried out different things, and even before he graduated, he was kind of dabbling in making his own products. He answered an ad, maybe similar to the one that you see on the left, to be his own mixer. He sent away for a mixing guide and learned how to make different concoctions. And the family story is that he used to just smell up his mother's kitchen, making all of these different things in her kitchen. Like I said, once he graduated, he tried some different venues and outlets for his creativity. One of them was that he printed the Henley Delphic, which was a local newspaper, and you can see him on the right with the printing press there in Henley. He printed that newspaper from 1909 to 1913, and one of his biggest advertisers was his dad. His dad advertised quite a bit in his newspaper, but Edwin took on other printing jobs as well. He printed stationery, invitations, calling cards, different things like that for the local community. After that, he decided that he wanted to be the postmaster, so he became postmaster of Henley in 1914. And if you're doing the math, he was still quite young at that time. And so while he was doing all of this, he was still doing all those concoctions and mixing different things, trying to find that one product that would make him good money. All of this stuff was sold through the mail or through sales agents, and he upped the business in the post office to the point where they were a cancellation post office rather than just a place that you dropped off. Next slide, please. Finally, in 1917, he landed on a product that became quite successful. Now, prior to this product, he was, like I said, selling through the mail and through door-to-door sales. He wasn't doing a lot of advertising, if any at all. It was mostly word of mouth. But when he landed on this product, he decided that it was an opportunity to advertise. So he did take out advertisements targeting the World War I soldiers that were coming back with the smoking habit. As you can see in the left-hand card there, you can see a picture of somebody who has a military uniform on. So this product, nicotine, was to help people stop smoking, and it was a mixture of tablets and a little bit of a liquid that you would take, and it was supposed to curb your passion for the tobacco and the nicotine. Like I said, he was advertising this to the soldiers. The soldiers were getting cigarettes in their rations, and they were becoming addicted to the smoking. And Edwin was always very concerned about health because he himself did not have the greatest of health, fighting ulcers all of his life. So he was very concerned about their health and wanting to help them stop their addiction. This product was very successful. It gave him quite a bit of money. And he originally thought that he would go out to California and continue his business and continue building upon his products. Unfortunately, his health was not very well, and he ended up having an attack of his ulcers and decided that maybe he needed to stay closer to his family where he had support. Next slide, please. This is a picture of his family. His grandmother was still living and standing in the center there, and his parents and all of his siblings and some of their spouses as well. In between all of this, Edwin had met a girl named Kitty Shoemaker, who is standing next to him, and they're both standing on, or he's seating and she's standing on the left side of this picture in the back. Kitty was a little girl who was the daughter of a doctor in the area, and she had brought in a product to the general store and tried to convince David and Edwin that they needed to sell it. This product was a powdered mix that had 6 flavors, and it made up really easily with hot water, and everybody knows it as Jell-O. Edwin was really fascinated with that product, and he always kept that in the back of his mind. When he became successful with nicotine and was healthy again, he decided to move to Hastings. At the time, Hastings had 2 major highways plus various railroad tracks running through here, and we had 13 different wholesale businesses that operated out of Hastings. So this was a big mecca for developing products and shipping them out to the rest of the country. And he decided it was a good step to move to Hastings. With him, a good portion of his family came. Some of them were working for him, some of them were just there for moral support. But eventually, his mom, his dad, half of his siblings, they all moved to Hastings to help him. Next slide, please. So once he moved to Hastings, he established his company known as Perkins Product Company. His logo there with a young lady, we actually don't know where this photo came from. We're pretty sure that it's just a stock photo that he probably sent away for. But he developed a catalog, which you can see there on the bottom left is some pages from that catalog. And again, he still kept this going with the sales agents. They would take their products door to door and sell as much as they could. You can see some of the different products on the right, and this is just a very small sampling. He had cleaning products, he had food products, he had health products. There was over 125 different things in this catalog. But the most popular one was a drink mix. Next slide, please. This drink mix was a liquid concentrate. You would add sugar and water and a little bit of this liquid into a pitcher and mix it up, and you would serve it to your family or your guests. One of the problems is he had to ship this out to his sales agents through the mail. And this was in a glass bottle. It had that cork stopper in the top. And as you can see from this bottle example, it leaked really easily, if not broke, as it was getting shipped. So Edwin really wanted to do something different. He wanted something that was easier to package, easier to ship, and that was more economical for people to purchase. So he kept thinking about that product, Jell-O. And eventually he landed on Kool-Aid. Next slide, please. So in 1927, he first started selling Kool-Aid. And if you'll notice the spelling, it's ADE, not AID like we know today. He started selling this through a grocery store outlet called Cushing Grocery. Cushing Grocery was a company that they already had an established business with here in Hastings. They would supply products to the various grocery stores in the area and had supplied David's general store in Henley with things prior to them moving to Hastings. So they had that relationship built up already. So he was distributing it through Cushing that first year in 1927. By 1928, it was pretty much going statewide. By 1929, it was going nationwide. And this was going through what was called brokers and jobbers who would go out to the different grocery stores and try and persuade them to carry products in their stores. Now, as I pointed out earlier, the spelling of the name, ADE, was used for 5 years before they ended up changing it. And part of the reason that they end up changing is because if you use ADE in the name, your product needs to have a content of real fruit juice. And being this is a powdered and they did use artificial flavorings, according to the FDA, they couldn't use that ADE. So they ended up changing it to AID, and they continued to sell. This package that you see here is the package that they used until they changed the spelling. And you can see one of the ads that they were using to get jobbers and brokers to take this product on in their stores. Next slide, please. By the time they hit it big with Kool-Aid, they had moved into this building on First Street in Hastings. It's across from the railroad depot. It still stands today. The major part of it is used for private use, but the front part has been adorned with all sorts of images and stuff that relate to Kool-Aid, so that when people go down there, it's pretty obvious which building it was. Within this building, they would package and make Kool-Aid. He had a force of his family and some other girls in town who would take the product, they would put it into an inner packet and pound the packet flat and then put it into the outer packet that you saw in the previous slide. And then it would be put in a box and sent to the brokers who would give it to the grocery stores who would then proceed to sell it. Next slide, please. By 1931, the business had grown so rapidly and was doing so well that he decided that he needed to have even better methods of distribution and then to be closer to the products that he needed to make Kool-Aid. So they moved to Chicago. This is their first factory that they had there in Chicago. You can see the truck and you can just barely make out, but there's some imagery on that truck that was also used on their packages for making things like sherbet. They were in this factory until 1937, and then they built a much larger factory where it continued to be, Kool-Aid continued to be made until I think it was 2001. Next slide, please. So once they changed the name, the packets also changed, and you can see a couple examples over here on the left. This is the type of package that Edwin used up until the time that he sold the company. And very little changes, maybe a little bit of wording changes here and there, but nothing major. So it was a pretty standard package for people to look at. Again, we had 6 flavors. You can see 2 of them being shown here. The original flavors were grape, orange, cherry, strawberry, raspberry, and lemon lime. One of the stories that his family tells is how generous Edwin was, not only to the family, but to his workers, to his friends. And one of his concerns is that Kool-Aid was just a warm weather product. And he felt like he needed to keep his employees in a job through the winter. So he started branching out to some other products. Now, at first, he did not keep the name Jello, or excuse me, not Jello, did not keep the name Kool-Aid on these products. So he had things like this gel treat, he had gum, he had pudding mixes, he had a malt mix. A lot of these had the hyphens, like you can see in this gel treat. He really liked that hyphenated word. So, you know, Kool-Aid, gel treat. He had others like Gel-X, and just a whole different group of things that he liked that hyphen for. But anyway, back to the original part of this story. So he did these things basically to keep his employees in a job year-round. Some of these products were more successful than others, but eventually Kool-Aid really started to take over and become such a big business that he didn't really need to keep these other products. Next slide, please. Now, in my mind, Edwin had a lot of competition when he was selling Kool-Aid in those early years. There was a whole host of different companies out there. There was Frost-Aid. There was, oh shoot, I can't think of some of the others. But there was a lot of them. There was probably over a dozen different companies that were making a powdered drink mix. While some of them probably did not have the quality that Edwin had, certainly some of them probably did. But where I think his genius lies is where he motivated people. He motivated his brokers and sales agents to get the grocers to buy these products by offering them things like cars if they sold so much product to the grocery store owners. He offered incentives for the grocery store owners if they sold so much to the customers. And then in turn, he targeted kids with products that if they bought enough Kool-Aid, they could get as well. And here's just a few examples of some of the things that he offered as premiums. These premiums, you would send in the package of Kool-Aid after you drank it, and you would have to have maybe a couple premium or a couple of packages to get these premiums. It kind of depended on what it was. He also grouped the premiums in subject matter. So we had the aviation club, and there was hats that you could get, like you see on the upper left side of this image. There was a pen, there was a certificate. So there was different things that you would build upon. The stuff that is on the right was a little more practical, and it was offered to the parents more likely. Sometimes the kids would probably get these things, but there was also other things like silverware and tea towels and things that were offered to the parents who were purchasing Kool-Aid. And the whole idea is that this was to keep them buying it because you had to have so many packets to get these products. And when he was coming up through all of this, this was the end of the Depression in the late 30s. So, you know, people were penny pinching and stuff. And this was an economical product that they could purchase and also get other things by purchasing that product. And speaking of the Depression, I failed to mention the pricing. When Edwin first started selling Kool-Aid, he sold it for 10 cents a packet. With the Depression, he decided that he needed to make it something that was more affordable, so he lowered the price to 5 cents a packet. He never did raise the price again, but his sales continually climbed. Even when he did that first year, his sales were more than they were the year before. And basically, it was because it was a more economical product than soft drinks, but yet it was a good treat, especially for, you know, friends and family who would come to visit. It was something nice to share and refreshing. Next slide, please. Like I said, Edwin was very concerned about his employees, and these are just some images that we've received from the Chicago factory. You can see some of the people working there. Mostly they were women. Again, this was during the Depression as well as during World War II, when there weren't a lot of men around to do a lot of the jobs. When they purchased that new land to build the factory in 1937, there was concern by the neighbors about what that land was going to be used for and the just overall quality and property value. So one of the things that Edwin did for the community is he installed a park for everybody to use. This was a community park where they could go and have their kids play. They planted trees. It became a really nice thing. So he was trying to be good to the community as well. When they built their new facility, some of the things that I find very progressive on his part is he did offer air conditioning. They had a cafeteria. They had daycare. So again, where this was mostly a women's workforce, they could bring their children in and they could get daycare and not worry about it. He would put on meals at Christmas time for the employees. And so he really did try to do right by them. And if they did right by him, he would incentivize their work by offering them raises. And so they were paid very well at that time too. Next slide, please. So by 1953, Edwin was starting to kind of feel like if something happened to him and he passed away, the company would be lost. And so he made plans to sell the company in order to save the profits and stuff from the company for the rest of his family. So he ended up selling in 1953 to General Foods. Now, as a reminder, he never changed the packaging or anything. He did add other products that he put Kool-Aid name to. There was bottled Kool-Aid, there was Kool-Aid gum. These things were not as popular, particularly the bottled Kool-Aid, partially because I think we were coming out of World War II, and it was just not a luxury that people were able to or ready to spend their money on. But once General Foods acquired the Kool-Aid brand, they started making some changes pretty rapidly. They made changes to the packages. They started adding new flavors. You see the image on the left. These are 1960s packages. They ended up adding a product line that was pre-sweetened that we still can get today. In 1975, they introduced the Kool-Aid Man that we know and that we see adorning all of the packages. So a lot of the things that we remember today are things that came out of General Foods, continuing on with the product that Edwin had started and had successfully sold around the country and around the world. Next slide, please. When Edwin moved to Chicago, not all of his family went with him that time. There were a couple people that did, but a lot of his family ended up staying here in the Hastings area. In 2000, we started talking about how we needed to expand our products or our artifacts that related to the products of Kool-Aid, and how we wanted to talk more about this product that came out of small town Hastings. So we started working on an exhibit called Kool-Aid Discover the Dream. We opened this exhibit in 2002. People can walk through the area and learn about Edwin in the early days with the general merchandise. This is a replica of the front of the building. But you can also learn about all the other premiums. Premiums were a big part of General Foods marketing methods for Kool-Aid. And that's, again, things that most of us remember. You know, there was plush dolls, there was clothing, there was toys. These are the things that General Foods offered. When you come to the museum, you can see a huge wall with all of these premiums, and you can also see the premiums that Edwin offered when he was still in charge of the company. You can also learn more about all the other products that he created to keep his people in business, and learn more about things like the bottled Kool-Aid and the gum. Next slide, please. Prior to our opening of the exhibit, the city also started recognizing the importance of the invention here and started developing the plans for a big festival. So in 1997, we held our first Kool-Aid Days festival here in Hastings. Initially, the festival was held behind the museum, although it was not organized by us, and eventually it got so big that it had to be moved downtown. Within our exhibit renovation that we did in 2012, we recognized that Kool-Aid Days was a big part of the community, and highlighted some of the different things that have been sold and given away during Kool-Aid Days. Kool-Aid Days has been held every year since 1997 until COVID hit. Unfortunately, this year it was not held, and we will wait to see what they do next year with Kool-Aid Days. Next slide, please. So not only do we want to remember Edwin and his invention, we also want to remember all the other things that he was known for within his family and friends. Family was very definitely his first priority. When he sold to General Foods, he made sure that his family got shares in the company. He shared that wealth with them because many of them had either worked for him here in Hastings, or in some way had supported him throughout all of this. Friends and family eventually became like friends and employees, excuse me, eventually became family. He would treat them, like I said, to dinners and things like that. But there's another side of Edwin that many people didn't get the chance to see. He had a very good sense of humor, according to all of his nieces and nephews, and he loved animals. You can see him with animals there on the right side. He also very much enjoyed his grandchildren. Edwin and Kitty, his wife, had one daughter, and she in turn ended up having 5 children, and you can see one of their Christmas pictures there in the middle. Just all around, the family talks about how he was definitely the caretaker of the family and just a genuine good person. Next slide. Not only did he care for his family employees, he also cared for his community here in Nebraska. He never forgot his roots here. When he left Hastings, he didn't forget they would come back for dinners here. They still would go to church. When people needed money, he would donate money. So things around this area that their foundation and the Perkins family has given to is the Perkins Library that's on Hastings College campus. They also help fund one of the music halls in one of the buildings there on Hastings campus. They funded the Perkins Pavilion, which is an assisted care facility on the property of Good Samaritan Village. They have funded hospitals like the Cambridge Hospital here in Nebraska, and they continue to give to educational and medical facilities around the state still yet today. So even though he had moved away, he made it big. Like I said, he just never forgot his roots. Next slide, please. And because of that, him and Kitty are buried here in Hastings. Edwin passed away in 1961, and when he did, he was buried here in Hastings. And when Kitty passed away later, she also came back to Hastings to be buried. Kitty was his best friend throughout most of his life. Like I said, he met her from the general store in Henley, and she stayed with him. These are some of the pictures of them in later life. And he really did genuinely look at her as his best friend, and they were pretty much inseparable by all accounts of the family. Next slide, please. So I've shared with you a little bit about Edwin today, and there's so much more to the story of Kool-Aid. Even though it didn't happen here in Hastings, there's a lot of things that we still like to be proud of. If you visit our online store, you can buy some of our products for Kool-Aid, but you can also buy our book, Kool-Aid Discover the Dream. This book is a deeper dive into the story of Kool-Aid, the different products that have been made through Perkins Products Company, as well as premiums that have been offered and some of the competition as well. If you're interested in that story, you can buy the book at the website shop-hastingsmuseum.tamretail.net. It's there on the image there. Or I encourage you to just come to the Hastings Museum and visit our exhibit, and you can see some of these things up close and personal. Next slide, please. And we are far more than Kool-Aid. We have other events that talk about history around this area. Coming up on this Saturday, we have a guided bike tour around Hastings. We also have coming up a preschool play day that will talk about Halloween and pumpkins. And also our murder mystery downtown whodunit that will be coming up on October 17th. Next slide, please. If you are interested in the different things that we do here at the Hastings Museum, our website is right there. I encourage you to check it out. Make sure that you check for updated schedules. Our current hours are listed there, but just in case, please do check the website before you come or give us a call either way, and we would be happy to help you. Thank you so much for sharing all of your time with me this month. I've had fun really delving into some of the things that we have here in the museum, and hopefully you'll come to the museum someday and see it in person.
Teresa, this was great. I really appreciated the information, and it opened my eyes to so much that I didn't know before, considering Kool-Aid days. Now, let me ask you this. Of your Kool-Aid exhibit, what's your most favorite piece?
I really, really like the original package. I like the way it was designed, the color. I don't know. There's some nostalgia there, I think, in just thinking about what went into not only creating that imagery, but what went into that product. Just the ingenuity and the inventiveness and perseverance. That's the other thing. You know, he didn't give up on one product. He just kept trying until he got something that worked. So
I love when you explained about his vision. I mean, again, how he built in the premiums, and it was all the way through the chain, not only to the buyer of the product, but also all the way through the salesman and the grocery store chain. It was just ingenious, genius.
He really knew how to give incentives and encourage people to do better, and in turn, that of course made him more successful.
I would say so. So I had to bring it out from my collection, but I found, and I talked to Teresa about this, the puzzle that I have, jigsaw, that shows a lot of the Kool-Aid packets, which again was a great collectible. I'm understanding that you have that available at the Hastings Museum.
We do. And I will say I have put it together, and it is really a lot of fun.
Oh, that is so nice. Okay, so again, if I wanted to find out more about the Kool-Aid and the history, where would I go and what would I find?
Well, of course, you're always welcome to come look at the exhibit here in Hastings, or you can order our book online at shop-hastings-museum.tamretail.net. And not only has our book, it has a lot of the other Kool-Aid products that we have for sale. So it has that puzzle, keychains, there's socks, t-shirts that are from past Kool-Aid days, there's mugs, there's a whole host of different things that you can buy that are Kool-Aid, and in other things for Hastings Museum store too. But yeah, I'm happy to come.
Well, I do want to thank you, Teresa. This has been a very fun month. We learned so much about the Hastings Museum. Again, we started out in the beginning of September doing the history of the museum. We did the animal dioramas. We did the hidden gems specific to Hastings, and then the interesting artifacts that you've collected throughout the way. And then to top it off with Kool-Aid, it was perfect. I really appreciate what you've done. Now, for our viewers, all of these segments were taped, and so they are available for you to see on our website at the AARP Nebraska Facebook page. And again, if you go to our website later on, you'll be able to see a link that connects all those segments together so you can watch. So when you do visit our Facebook page, make sure you like us and follow us so you can see more of our Facebook Live sessions to come in the future. Now, Hastings Museum, we're not done with you yet. It's my understanding that in November, we're going to come back, and Teresa, you're going to give us an hour-long discussion and topic on the Naval Ammunition Depot that the Hastings Museum does have an exhibit of information on. And truly, being with veterans and the Military Month, we'd love to hear a lot more about that. So again, thank you for being a guest of ours and for agreeing to come back and meet with us again. And we really look forward to it.
I look forward to it too. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it.
I have. Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks. Bye-bye.